Hello, good morning. I'm Kathleen Makagaling from 4H2 and this is Case Study 4, Where Did the Cry of Rebellion Happen? First of all, what is Cry of the Rebellion? It is the mark of the beginning of the Philippine Revolution in 1896, which led to Philippine independence in 1898. But the fact that the exact location and time where it happened was still inconsistent, but most of the historians believed it was held at Northeast Manila in August 1896. One of the famous historians in the Philippines is Teodoro Agoncillo, which emphasizes the event when Bonifacio tore the receipt or cedula. However, Guardia Civil Manuel Sitiar never mentioned in his memoirs the tearing or inspection of the cedula, but did note about the Pacto de Sangre or the blood pact marked in every single Filipino he met in August 1896 around Balintawak. There are different dates and places of the cry. Lieutenant Oligario Diaz identified the cry to have happened in Balintawak on the 25th of August 1896. Teodoro Calao, Filipino historian, marks the place to be in Kangkong, Balintawak on the last week of August 1896. Santiago Alvarez, Katimonero and son of Mariano Alvarez, leader of the Magdiwang faction in Cavite, put the cry in Bahay Toro in Quezon City on August 24, 1896. Pio Valenzuela, known Katipunero and privy to many events concerning the Katipunan, stated that the cry happened in Pugad, Lawin on the 23 August 1896. Historian Gregorio Zaide identified the cry to have happened in Balintawak on August 26, 1896, while Teodoro Agoncillo put it at Pugad, Lawin on the 23 August 1896 according to the statements of Pio Valenzuela. Research by historians Milagros Guerrero, Emmanuel Encarnacion, and Ramon Villegas claimed that the event took place in Tandang Soras Barn in Gulod, Barangay Banlat, Quezon City on the 24th of August 1896. Primary source, Accounts of the Cry. Here is Guillermo Masangkay's memoir about his participation of the Cry of Balintawak. On August 26, a big meeting was held in Balintawak at the house of Apolonio Samson, then cabeza of the barrio of Caloocan. Bonifacio, Emilio Jacinto, Aguido del Rosario, Tomas Remigio, Bricio Pantas, Teodoro Plata, Pio Valenzuela, Enrique Pacheco, and Francisco Carrion was attended the meeting. They were all leaders of the Katipunan and composed the board of directors of the organization. Delegates from Bulacan, Cabanatuan, Cavite, and Morong were also present. On the 9 o'clock of the morning, on August 26, the meeting was opened with Andres Bonifacio and Emilio Jacinto acting as secretary. The purpose of the discussion was to discuss the uprising when to take place. Teodoro Plata, Bricio Pantas, and Pio Valenzuela were all opposing to start the revolution too early. Andres Bonifacio, sensing that he would lose in the discussion, then left the session hall and talked to the people who were waiting outside for the result of the meeting of the leaders. He told the people that the leaders were arguing against starting the revolution early and appealed to them in a fiery speech in which he said, "You remember the fate of our countrymen who were shot in Bagong Bayan. Should we return now to the towns, the Spaniards will only shoot us. Our organization has been discovered and we're all marked men. If we don't start the uprising, the Spaniards will get anyway. What then do you say?" "Revolt," the people shouted as one. Bonifacio then asked the people to give a pledge that they would revolt. He told them that the sign of slavery of the Filipinos were the cedula tax charged each citizen. "It is true that you are ready to revolt. I want to see you destroy your cedulas. It will be the sign that all of us have declared our severance from the Spaniards." And that is what Gregorio Masangkay noted in his memoirs, which has something common to Pio Valenzuela. Here is the excerpt from Pio Valenzuela's Memia about the cry of Pugad Lawin. The first place of refuge of Andres Bonifacio, Emilio Jacinto, Procopio Bonifacio, Teodoro Plata, Aguido del Rosario, and Pio Valenzuela was in Balintawak, the first 5 arriving there on August 19 and August 20, 1896. The first place where some 500 members of the Katipunan met on August 22, 1896 at the house of Apolonio Samson at Kangkong. Aside from the persons mentioned, among those who were Bricio Pantas, Alejandro Santiago, Ramon Bernardo, Apolonio Samson, and others. Views were only exchanged and no resolution was debated or adopted. It was at Pugad Lawin, the house or storehouse and yard of Juan Ramos, son of Melchora Aquino, where over 1,000 members of the Katipunan met and arrived. Considerable debate and discussion on August 23, 1896. The discussion was on whether or not the revolution against the Spanish government should be started on August 29, 1896. After the tumultuous meeting, many of those present tore their cedula certificates and shouted, "Long live the Philippines!" From the eyewitness and accounts presented, there is indeed marked disagreement among historical witnesses as to the place and time of the occurrence of the cry. Using primary and secondary sources, 4 places have been identified: Balintawak, Kangkong, Pugad Lawin, and Bahay Toro, while the dates vary 23, 24, 25, or 26 August 1896. Valenzuela's inconsistency in his account should always be seen as red flag when dealing with primary sources, because he once told a Spanish investigator that the cry happened in Balintawak on Wednesday, 26 August 1896. Then he wrote in his memoirs of the revolution that it happened at Pugad Lawin on the 23rd of August 1896. According to Guerrero Encarnacion and Villegas, all these places are in Balintawak, then part of Caloocan, now in Quezon City. As for the dates, Bonifacio and his troops may have been moving from one place to another to avoid being located by the Spanish government, which could explain why there are several accounts of the cry. Some writers identify that the cry of Balintawak inspired the renewed struggle after the Pact of Biak na Bato failed. The monuments of Katipunan was erected in the intersection of EDSA or Epifania de los Santos Avenue, and the cry of Balintawak was celebrated every 26th of August. The site of the monument was chosen for an unknown reason.